pleasant afternoon to all of you. We are the group 11 and we are tasked to discuss and share with you our topic minimalist art. So let's start. We will begin our discussion by tackling the overview of minimalist art, main definition and focus. So minimalist art or minimalism is a type of visual art that uses limited material and simplified design, which includes the repetition of various geometric forms to make or create a complex yet simple art. Because of its focus on basic elements, it is also known as ABC art. Minimalism is a popular art movement that developed in the late 1950s and early 60s. During this period, the art world saw a major transition, particularly among young artists whose works began to actively reject and move away from abstract expressionism. The art movement was truly groundbreaking for its time, as it saw artists focusing on highlighting the very true essence of the medium and material to form the art itself. Considered an extension of abstract art, minimalism removes all essential forms in order to expose the purity and beauty of the art object. It's a genre that has been widely associated with conceptual art, which during the 1960s was extremely radical in that it challenged pre-existence structures of making, viewing, and understanding art. With minimalist artists focusing primarily on the surface of the canvas and the aesthetic quality of materials, their works has been closely linked with notions pertaining to truth and honesty. Artists did not pretend to represent anything other than what it was. And that's it for the overview of minimalist art. I would like to give the floor to Ms. 𝙍𝙞𝙘𝙝𝙗𝙝, for she will be introducing us to some of the greatest and noble minimalist artists in their time.
Indeed, their works are closely linked with notions pertaining to truth and honesty. Thank you for that, Cindy. And now, before I tell you the most famous artists in art movement period, let me remind everyone to take the important notes, for we will having questions later. So one of the famous artists in art movement period was Mr. Kazimierz Malevich, or Malevich, I don't know how to say it, in 1987 to 1935, also known as the great supremacist art painter. And one of his famous artwork, the most impactful one, is the Black Circle during 1913 in State Russian Museum in Petersburg. Black Circle is a 1924 oil-on-canvas painting by the Kiev-born artist Kazimierz Malevich, or Malevich, founder of the Russian supremacist movement. From the mid-1910s, Malevich abandoned any trace of figurative or representation from his painting in favor of pure abstraction. Another artist was Mr. Marcel Duchamp, from 1987 to 1968, a French painter who was famous of its ready-made artworks. One of his artworks is the bicycle wheel during 1913 that can be found in the Israel Museum, Jerusalem. Yes, bicycle wheel is a ready-made art from Marcel Duchamp, consisting of a bicycle fork with front wheel mounted upside down on a wooden stool. In 1913, at his Paris studio, Duchamp mounted the bicycle wheel upside down on a stool, spinning it occasionally just to watch it. The wheel attached springs freely when pushed, and Duchamp actually encouraged onlookers to spin the wheel, but unfortunately this is not permitted in this museum. The wheel is considered to be a piece of Dada art. Yes, we all know Dada art here. One of the famous artists also is Mr. Frank Stella, an abstract expressionist, one of the first abstract painters specifically linked with minimalism art. One of his famous work is the Harantu during 1967 in Durham Museum, New York. In the late 1950s and 1960s, Frank Stella broke the stronghold of abstract expressionism with his deceptively simple paintings of black stripes separated by narrow lines of unpainted canvas. Another famous artist that was known during this period of art movement are Agnes Martin Termola 1962 and Dan Flavin Crossing Greens 1966. His light works came Out of minimalist ideology, Calvin used factory-made colored fluorescent light fittings and gradually developed his work into full-scale, site-specific installations, creating a completely new artistic language in the process. And those artists I mentioned are just few of the many great minimalist artists that contributed and made the art movement impactful and notable way back. That's all for me, everyone. Thank you for listening. And here's Mr. Nathaniel Rabo to explain to us the characteristics of minimalist arts and few of its notable examples.
Thank you, Josie. So, characteristics of minimalist arts. Commonly occurring characteristics of minimalist interfaces are the following: flat rather than skeuomorphic patterns and textures, use of limited or monochromatic color palette, strictly limited features and graphic elements, maximize negative space, dramatic use of typography to communicate hierarchy or create visual interest. Important characteristics of minimalism also include the repetition of simple geometric forms like lines or squares. Early works tended to be monochromatic or limited palette of one or a few closely related colors. Many minimalist works are hard-edged with clear, precise transition between areas of color. Here are some more examples of minimalist artworks: Frank Stella di Fanny Hodge, Robert Morris Untitled, Agnes Martin with My Back to the World, Sol Lewitt Wall Drawings, Judy Chicago Rainbow Cricket. And that's it for the minimalist arts in some of its example. Here's Mr. Jude Joshua Reyes to give us insights about minimalist arts in architecture.
At this point, we will be discussing minimalist arts architecture along with a few examples. So, minimalism began as an art movement after World War II and rose to prominence as a design aesthetics in the 1960s and 1970s. Some cite Ludwig Mies van der Rohe as being the first leader of minimalist design, and his basic yet striking structures are constructed simply to maximize space and a feeling of openness. Minimalist architecture is characterized by a combination of basic essentials, context and place, emptiness, infinite space, limited colors, simplicity, and the use of concrete, glass, and natural materials and light. These examples are as follows. So here are the examples. So first is the Donald Jude's house in New York, United States of America, around 1968, and the Okinawa house in Okinawa, Japan, in 2013. Around 2016, and the Mühldorf house in Mallorca, Spain, in 1987 to 1989, the Bruder Clausfield Chapel in Metternich, Germany, 2007, and the DC Second Residence in Thames, Belgium, in 2011, and the Casa de Historias Paula Riego, Casillas, Portugal, 2008, and the Thermals in Switzerland, 1998. And that is for the minimalist art in architecture and some of its notable and iconic artworks. And let me give the floor to Miss Edelby as she discuss our next highlights and some of the key points of this report.
Thank you, Jude. To wrap and summarize everything, minimalism or minimalist art can be seen as extending the abstract idea that art should have its own reality, not to be an imitation of some other thing. With minimalism, no attempt is made to represent an outside reality, and the artist wants the viewer to respond only to what is in front of them. As we've tackled earlier, minimalist art focuses on things like geometry, line, and color, and early works tended to be monochromatic, limited to one color and related hues like black, gray, or white. So another way to identify a minimalist painting is by looking for hard edge, precise borders between areas of color. So minimalism is about avoiding the unnecessary. It's about simplicity, utility, and elegance. So it's all about less is more in terms of embracing the most fewer things. So minimalist art is defined by one major principle: keep it simple. Streamlined shapes, a small selection of colors. Simplicity is the key to pinpointing this style. And that's it. And I hope the main idea of minimalist art is clear as crystal and day to all of us. So, and just like that, we are moments away from finishing this discussion. So before we end and say goodbye to each other, let me give you the one and only Mr. April 𝙍𝙞𝙘𝙝𝙗𝙝 there. He will give us some trivias about our topic. So, Mr. VJ, take it away, bro.
Thank you so much for that Edelweiss. At trivia po muna tayo, mga idol. Charot, we're all gonna speak English today, okay? Trivia number 1. Did you know that minimalism was an art movement that was developed in the United States in the late 1950s and that reached its peak in the mid to late 1960s?
Now you know.
Trivia number 2. Did you know that 𝙍𝙞𝙘𝙝𝙗𝙝 was known to be the father of minimalism for his monochromatic paintings begun in the late 1950s on canvases topographically altered by underlying rows of items? So the one that I'm taking a picture with is 𝙍𝙗𝙗𝙗𝙗 and that was taken on my birthday.
Now you know.
Trivia number 3. Did you know that minimalism was also a reaction to the most prominent style of art pursued in the 1950s? Abstract expressionism, in which the art conveyed multiple meanings of intense emotions and ideas, sometimes created in spontaneous or unplanned ways. By the late 1950s, some artists began rebelling against what they considered abstract expressionism's excesses. They headed in a completely opposite direction towards minimalist art.
Now you know.
And so now, let us proceed to the Q&A portion, guys. I hope everyone will participate because there will be prize. It could be house and lot, or it could be me. So I will give 7 seconds for you guys to answer and just answer in the comment box, okay? Okay ba yun? He is also known as the Great Supremacist Painter. A. April Kider, B. Manny Pacquiao, or C. Kazimierz Malevich, or D. Marcel Duchamp. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the correct answer is Kazimierz Malevich, guys. It is a popular art movement that developed in the late 1950s and early 60s. A. Minimalism, B. Abstract Expressionism, C. Guapolism, D. Dadaism. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the correct answer is minimalism, guys. He was known to be the father of minimalism for his monochromatic paintings. A. 𝙍𝙗𝙗𝙗𝙗, B. Frank Stella, C. Jeff Arcilla, D. Agnes Martin. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the correct answer, guys, is 𝙍𝙗𝙗𝙗𝙗. So that with you all, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned a lot from our topic and our discussion. And here are the references that we used for our topic.